For years, she lived in the shadow of drinking, fear and hope that everything would change. He thought he had the situation under control until his own wife sued to limit his legal capacity. Testimony, hidden lodgers, stories about domovicas, and medical examinations went into action. But when the court made a decision, both parties received a shock. It's not just a business, it's a violent collision of love, addiction, and a struggle for control, where no one comes out victorious. Chapter 1. Claim. The clerk's office in Lake County, Indiana, was surprisingly quiet for a Monday morning. Only the soft clicking of keys and the muffled hum of an old air conditioner filled the air. Marion Brooks was sitting on a plastic chair by a window that read Civil Filings. In her hands, she held neatly collected documents, a statement of claim, certificates, statements of neighbors, copies of her husband's medical records. Her fingers were shaking, though she tried to sound confident. The woman looked exhausted but determined. A black and white sweater with long sleeves, hair pulled into a sloppy knot, dark circles under his eyes, everything gave the impression of a person who had not slept for a long time. But there was a firm determination shining in her eyes. She was going to put an end to years of hell. "The next one," shouted a female clerk with red hair. Marion went to the window and put the folder with the claim. "Are you sure you want to file this exactly as an application for limitation of legal capacity?" asked the clerk, cursorily looking through the documents. "This is a serious matter. If the court approves, your husband will lose the right to independently manage finances, sign documents, and conclude agreements." "I know," answered Marion quietly but firmly. "Otherwise he will die, or me." The clerk paused for a moment, looking at her over her glasses. Then she silently stamped the statement. Marion exhaled. She took the first step. The most difficult now to wait. A week later, she was summoned to a preliminary hearing. The summons came by mail in a regular envelope. She opened it while standing by the sink where she washed the dishes after dinner. Her heart was beating fast. Alex was snoring softly in the corner of the room, drunk as he was every night. She sat down at the kitchen table, paper in hand, and smiled for the first time in a long time. For the first time, hope appeared. Judge Glenn Hoffman, a tall man with prominent gray at the temples, read the statement that day. The case was scheduled for consideration in 2 weeks. Brooks versus Brooks is a standard family affair at first glance, but the judge felt something else about it. Intuition, filled with years on the court bench, suggested it will not be easy, and he was not wrong. Chapter 2. Subpoena. Alex Brooks received the summons Friday morning. An envelope, slightly crumpled, with the official seal of the county, was in the mailbox next to bills and a brochure advertising cheap TVs. He tore it off leisurely, standing on the porch in his work boots and a mug of coffee in hand. At first, he did not understand what he was reading. Court, claim, limitation of legal capacity. He read the text again, more slowly. Then the third time, and exploded. "Damn it, Marion, are you out of your mind?" He burst into the house, brandishing the summons like a weapon. Marion was just standing by the stove, frying eggs. She was not surprised. "I was waiting for this moment." She calmly turned to face him. "You left me a choice. Do you even understand what you have done? Do you want me to be declared incompetent?" His voice trembled with rage. "I want you to finally heal, or at least admitted that he was sick." He threw the paper on the table and left, slamming the door. In a few minutes, the engine of his pickup truck roared in the yard, and he drove off. Marion sat down on a kitchen chair, dried her hands with a towel, and only then allowed herself to tremble. It could no longer be stopped. The following Monday, Alex showed up at work, not in the best shape. The head of the workshop, Earl Connors, his old friend, got up from the table. "What the hell happened to you? Heard that Marion sued something there. She wants to make an idiot out of me. Take everything under your control. I'm officially abnormal to her now, can you imagine?" Alex smiled crookedly, but there was something disturbing in his eyes. "Maybe you should show that you are normal. Get a lawyer, don't go crazy. You know how they love it, stories with explosions and swearing. I don't need a lawyer. I will tell everything myself. Let him try to prove that I am sick. Connors shook his head. He had seen many things in his life, but he had never seen such a process. He knew one thing for sure: if the court sided with Marion, Alex would no longer be able to withdraw money from his account on his own. For a man used to being in control both literally and metaphorically, it was worse than prison. He got into the car and put his hands on the steering wheel. Court, own wife. Shit. This time it's serious. The hum of the factory was left behind. In front is an unknown person with the sign District Court of Lake County. Chapter 3. Recognition of the situation. A week before the court hearing, Marion was called for an interview with a representative of the district social service. It was a small room on the third floor of the administration center, with soft chairs and a lavender-scented diffuser meant to create the illusion of calm. But peace Marion left long ago. She sat with her hands clasped, as if she were afraid that she would strike herself with the words she was about to say. Across from her sat Mrs. Andrews, a social worker with a friendly smile and a recorder on her desk. "Mrs. Brooks," she began softly, "please tell me why you think your husband is incapable of making his own decisions." Marion swallowed. Her voice trembled a little, but the words sounded clear. "When we got married, Alex was completely different. He worked, joked, we dreamed of children. But somewhere after 10 years of marriage, he started drinking. First, on weekends, then every evening. Now he may not leave the house for 10 days, only drinking, sleeping, yelling at me, or not remembering anything at all. In our house, the boundaries between reality and delusion have disappeared." She paused, took a deep breath, and added, "He became dangerous, and for myself and for me." Mrs. Andrews nodded, occasionally jotting down something. The conversation lasted 45 minutes. After her, Marion stepped out into the fresh air and felt the earth shake a little under her feet. But it wasn't weakness, it was fear that she would be believed. Meanwhile, Alex was sitting in the local bar, Rusty Wrench, in his usual corner. In front of him was a pint of pale ale and a shot of whiskey. Next to him is his friend Benny, a mechanic from a nearby service station. "She said that I was not myself, that I'm dangerous. I've never been taken for a fool, Ben." Benny shrugged. "Well, sometimes you're a little. Too much. But to directly be a guardian, this is a real war." Alex looked in the mirror behind the bar. The face is tired, a little swollen, the eyes are cloudy. He suddenly remembered how, last year, he dreamed that someone was walking in the house, and even consulted a psychiatrist. "But that was once, and I went there myself. Maybe she really thinks she's saving me, or maybe she just wants to control everything. My money, me, my life." The trial no longer seemed like a joke. He became a sentence, and the question was not whether one person would win. The question was which of them would get out of this alive, although internally, the trial was approaching. Both prepared, each in his own way. She is silently collecting papers. He is in a bar drinking whiskey, and it seemed to both that something important was already changing irreversibly. Chapter 4. Alex's Voice. Courtroom No. 2. Tuesday, 9 in the morning. The rain beats rhythmically against the large windows of the old county courthouse. People in dark suits and heavy boots are shuffling papers, whispering, glancing at their watches. Sitting on a bench against the wall is Alex Brooks, wearing a dark gray jacket that has long since lost its shape, but seemed to make him look like a normal man. He didn't like costumes, but today was not just a day. This was the day his voice was to be heard aloud. Judge Hoffman appeared, as usual, at 9 o'clock sharp. Everyone got up. Marion sat across the aisle, wearing a plain blue jacket, her hair pulled back, her face free of makeup. She wasn't looking at him. "Mr. Brooks," said the judge, "you are granted the floor. You can explain your position on the claim." Alex stood up. At first he wanted to speak sharply, as he was used to with defense, sarcasm. But the words stuck. Instead of anger, something else appeared: fatigue and pain. "Your Honor," he began, "I don't deny that I drink sometimes. Maybe more often than it should. But I'm working. I pay the bills. I live with a woman who has not loved me for a long time, and now she also wants to make me incapacitated. I'm not psycho. I am not a criminal. I am just a tired man who wants to be crossed out. The judge was silent. Alex looked at Marion. You know I'm not a monster. Yes, sometimes I get frustrated, but I always come back. I tried, damn it. I even went to the clinic myself when I thought that something was wrong with me. But you know what? It was you who disappeared from our house. Not me, you are emotional. For years. Marion did not answer, but her shoulders tightened. I'm not perfect, but you are not a saint either. And if you want to leave, go. But don't make me a weak-willed invalid. The judge raised his eyebrows. The silence in the hall became heavy. Only the rain continued to beat on the windows like a comment from the sky itself. Thank you, Mr. Brooks, the judge finally said. We heard you. Alex sat down. Hands were shaking. He didn't know if he had just protected himself or if he had lost everything. Chapter 5. Domestic in American Reality. The plaintiff's witness, Nick Aminoff, is invited. The court secretary's voice sounded dry, but everyone in the hall raised their heads. A man of medium height appeared in the passage, thin, wearing an oversized jacket, which he seemed to have borrowed from someone for this performance. He had a calm, almost guilty face, close-cropped hair, and hands that were constantly clutching something, sometimes a button, sometimes the hem of his jacket. Full name, place of residence, and occupation, please, asked Judge Hoffman. Nick Aminoff, Gary, Indiana. I work in paint production. Marion and I know each other through work. Did you live in the house of the Brooks couple? Yes, Your Honor. A few weeks. It was an exceptional situation. Tell the court how you ended up there. Nick sighed. He looked at Alex, who was sitting in the hall, his jaws tightly clenched. I was fired after a conflict at work. I had nowhere to live then. A women's dormitory is not an option. I asked Marion to shelter me for a few days. She agreed, but with the condition to remain inconspicuous. Because her husband, they say, is in a serious condition. Did you live in their house? Where exactly? In the pantry near the kitchen. I tried not to make any noise. He went out only at night when Alex fell asleep. And what happened next? Nick frowned, but continued. One evening, Alex must have heard something. I was going to the kitchen very carefully, but he heard footsteps. I hid behind the curtain in a panic, and when he came in, I said that domo, that is, something like a domo. This is the first thing that came to mind. There were several surprised smiles in the hall. The judge coughed restrainedly. You said you were? A house spirit? Yes, Your Honor. It sounds absurd, but I didn't know what else to invent. He was drunk. I thought, sleep and forget. But he did not forget. The next day I went to the drug center. He said that he began to hallucinate. Judge Hoffman cocked his head to one side. Do you think that your stay could affect the mental state of the defendant? I think not. He was already in a serious condition. I was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. But I'm glad if my absurdity at least pushed him to seek help. There was silence in the hall. Alex didn't look angry for the first time in the whole process, only confused, as if something had just dawned on him. Both the judge and the jury noted this. The story, which sounded like a farce, suddenly became another proof. The Brooks household had long been dominated by not only an alcoholic cloud, but also a deep, viscous crack in reality. Chapter 6. Expertise. Trials have their own internal chemistry, a slow but inevitable reaction where every argument sinks to the bottom, and the truth sometimes emerges only at the very end. After Nick Aminoff's testimony, Judge Hoffman ruled, for a full objective consideration of the case, it is necessary to conduct an independent psychoneurological examination of the defendant, Alex Brooks. The procedure was scheduled for the following Monday at St. Luke's Medical Center. Alex arrived there unaccompanied, wearing jeans and a t-shirt with the logo of his factory. At the register, he threw a folder with documents on the counter and muttered, Brooks, evaluation for the court. You know. He was asked to wait. The lobby smelled of antiseptics and coffee from the machine. 15 minutes later, he was called. The expert was Dr. Allison Gray, a psychiatrist with 20 years of experience, a woman wearing glasses with narrow silver frames and a piercing gaze. She invited him to sit in a soft chair, took a notebook and a pen in her hands. "Mr. Brooks, I'm not here to judge. My job is to understand if you are aware of your actions, if you are in control of yourself in your daily life, and if drinking alcohol affects your functioning as a person. Will you ask how much I drink?" Alex snorted. "And that too. But not only." The conversation lasted more than an hour. She asked questions about childhood, marriage, work, emotions, stress, dreams. Alex answered first with sarcasm, then with sincerity. He didn't even notice how he gave up talking turned out to be easier than keeping everything inside. "Have you had memory lapses after drinking alcohol?" "Yes. Sometimes. I woke up and there were broken dishes around me. I don't remember how I got into a fight with Marion. Sometimes I don't even remember that she was at home at all." "Do you remember the story with the spirit of the house?" Alex laughed, bitterly. "I really thought then that I was hallucinating. That's why he went to the clinic. Voluntarily. I'm not crazy, am I?" Dr. Gray said nothing. "I just made a few more notes and said goodbye to Alex, thanking him for his sincerity." The report came to the court 3 days later. The document with the seal of the clinic, signed by Dr. Gray, was short but comprehensive. "Mr. Alex Brooks does not suffer from chronic alcohol dependence with clinically harmful consequences. At the time of examination, he is conscious, critical, and in control of his behavior. He has the ability to make independent decisions." Judge Hoffman read the opinion in private, in his office, where the silence was broken only by the clock. He put the paper on the table, sighed, and said to himself, "I wonder, is this the end or just the beginning of an even deeper fall?" Chapter 6. Expertise. Trials have their own internal chemistry, a slow but inevitable reaction where every argument sinks to the bottom and the truth sometimes emerges only at the very end. After Nick Aminoff's testimony, Judge Hoffman ruled, for a full objective consideration of the case, it is necessary to conduct an independent psychoneurological examination of the defendant, Alex Brooks. The procedure was scheduled for the following Monday at St. Luke's Medical Center. Alex arrived there unaccompanied, wearing jeans and a t-shirt with the logo of his factory. At the register, he threw a folder with documents on the counter and muttered, "Brooks, evaluation for the court. You know." He was asked to wait. The lobby smelled of antiseptics and coffee from the machine. 15 minutes later, he was called. The expert was Dr. Allison Gray, a psychiatrist with 20 years of experience, a woman wearing glasses with narrow silver frames and a piercing gaze. She invited him to sit in a soft chair, took a notebook and a pen in her hands. "Mr. Brooks, I'm not here to judge. My job is to understand if you are aware of your actions, if you are in control of yourself in your daily life, and if drinking alcohol affects your functioning as a person. Will you ask how much I drink?" Alex snorted. "And that too. But not only." The conversation lasted more than an hour. She asked questions about childhood, marriage, work, emotions, stress, dreams. Alex answered first with sarcasm, then with sincerity. He didn't even notice how he gave up talking turned out to be easier than keeping everything inside. "Have you had memory lapses after drinking alcohol?" "Yes. Sometimes. I woke up and there were broken dishes around me. I don't remember how I got into a fight with Marion. Sometimes I don't even remember that she was at home at all." "Do you remember the story with the spirit of the house?" Alex laughed, bitterly. "I really thought then that I was hallucinating. That's why he went to the clinic. Voluntarily. I'm not crazy, am I?" Dr. Gray said nothing. "I just made a few more notes and said goodbye to Alex, thanking him for his sincerity." The report came to the court 3 days later. The document with the seal of the clinic, signed by Dr. Gray, was short but comprehensive. "Mr. Alex Brooks does not suffer from chronic alcohol dependence with clinically harmful consequences." At the time of examination, he is conscious, critical, and in control of his behavior. He has the ability to make independent decisions. Judge Hoffman read the opinion in private in his office, where the silence was broken only by the clock. He put the paper on the table, sighed, and said to himself, "I wonder, is this the end or just the beginning of an even deeper fall?" Chapter 7. Decisions of Social Services. Independent expertise was important but not decisive. In cases of limitation of legal capacity, the court is also obliged to take into account the social factor, assessment of living conditions, material situation, threats to the family. That is why, the day after receiving the psychiatrist's opinion, another document appeared in the case, an official submission from the Department of Social Protection of Lake County. It was a comprehensive 8-page report drawn up by social worker Janet Kelly, who had visited the Brooks home a week earlier. She did not warn about the visit, and what she saw made an impression on her, which now had an official form. The home of the Brooks couple on 12th Avenue is in satisfactory condition, but there are numerous signs of neglect. The bathroom has a musty smell, lack of ventilation, traces of vomit. In the living room, there are scattered empty alcohol bottles, broken furniture, leftover food on the floor. Mr. Alex Brooks was in an intoxicated state, not oriented in time. The report continued with a description of the family's financial situation. According to tax statements, Alex received a steady income of about $3,800 a month for the past 6 months. But according to Marion, only a small part of this money entered the family budget. Most disappeared. It is not known what exactly. Alcohol abuse is persistent. Mr. Brooks' behavior is destructive to the family, causing emotional and physical exhaustion to his wife. She is in a state of chronic stress, forced to perform the duties of a caregiver without adequate assistance. The conclusion was unequivocal. The Department of Social Protection supports the application of Miss Marian Brooks to establish guardianship over Mr. Alex Brooks and considers it appropriate to limit his legal capacity within the limits provided by law. When Judge Hoffman read this report to the courtroom, the tension was almost palpable. Alex sat staring at the floor. His jaw moved as if he was chewing on something, perhaps words he didn't dare say out loud. Marian kept her arms crossed, her gaze fixed on the "In God We Trust" sign behind the judge. Her face showed nothing, no triumph, no relief. The judge paused, put the papers aside, and looked at both of them a third time. "We are close to a decision, but the final point is yet to come." The hall froze. Everyone was waiting for the final chord, and he, as you know, sounds louder than the entire symphony. Chapter 8. Court Decision. The final day of the hearing was cloudy and cold, even for Indiana. The sky over the city of Gary hung, as if preparing to trap everyone in a gray trap of waiting. Courtroom #2 was as quiet as a library. Not a single unnecessary movement, not a single cough, everyone was waiting. Judge Glenn Hoffman walked into the courtroom with no folders, only a single yellow sheet of paper and a pen. His gaze was focused, but there was no weariness in it, only responsibility. "The court has heard all sides," he began, his voice devoid of any emotion. "Read the report of the forensic psychiatric examination, as well as the evaluation provided by the Department of Social Protection." Marian sat, slightly bent forward, her hands clutching the edge of the bench. Alex looked almost calm, but something trembled in his eyes, barely detectable, maybe mistrust, maybe fear. "The psychiatric report shows that Mr. Brooks is aware of his actions and does not have a clinical addiction with irreversible consequences. This means that from a legal point of view, there are no grounds for limiting his legal capacity." The silence became louder than any sentence. At the same time, the judge continued, "The report of the social services causes serious concern. The issues raised household destruction, financial irresponsibility, psychological pressure on the wife have weight. But they are not included in the legal definition of legal incapacity." He paused, his eyes down on the paper. "Thus, the court decides to refuse to satisfy the claim for restriction of legal capacity of Mr. Alex Brooks." Marian closed her eyes. Alex didn't move. The parties are advised to contact counseling programs for married couples or, if desired, initiate the divorce process. The court has no jurisdiction to resolve emotional dramas, only legal grounds. Hammer knock. The case is closed. After the meeting, Marian slowly put on her coat near the exit. Alex stood nearby, staring out the window. The rain had stopped, but the drops were still rolling down the glass. "So what now?" he asked without looking back. She was silent for a few seconds. Then, "Now it's every man for himself. I don't save anymore." He wanted to answer, but he couldn't. He only ran his finger along the windowsill, leaving a mark. A new life was already waiting outside the door, for someone with the beginning, for some from the void. But now everything was real, and there was nothing left to say. And what do you think? Was the judge's verdict fair? Write your thoughts in the comments below the video. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next crazier.